I called my mom and I said, this is it. Like, I'm going to give myself 1 year. Get chills just thinking about it. I told my mom, I'm going to give myself 1 year to make disc golf a go. Like, the demos, the clinics, the sales, the running of tournaments, the running of leagues. Like, media wasn't even a thought yet. That didn't even exist. I told her I want to do all these other things. I said, if I can't do this in a year, I'll go back to getting a real job. But I've got my hands in so many cookie jars right now. I have to do this now. And that was the last time I had a full-time job.
Welcome back, friends. Today I drove 3.5 hours down to, I don't know how you pronounce it, Pewaukee, Wisconsin, to sit down with a disc golf legend. Our guest today was a pro disc golfer, turned announcer, course designer, podcaster, all-around media man. Welcome to the show, Terry Miller, a.k.a. the Disc Golf Guy.
Thank you for having me. How you doing? Thanks for the long drive.
Yeah. This is a bit of a trek. And I've been driving it all the time recently. It's like I used to do a lot of interviews in Minneapolis, and people thought it was so far for me. But that's like 90 miles. And now I've been getting connected to all these people way on the other side of the state. So this has been a normal trek. I'm trying to figure out, like, do I need to take the extra 45-minute drive to go around on county roads to make it more interesting? Is it worth it?
I mean, if you took something like, Highway 16 and then worked your way over towards Wisconsin Dells and then maybe somewhere that direction, that might be a little bit, I don't know that it's going to be that crazy.
Do you drive to a lot? And we will get to earlier stuff, but you told me off mic you were about to drive all the way to Michigan. Do you drive to a lot of the tournaments and stuff?
It's now become about 50-50. So anything within like that 6 to 8 hours when I'm contracted, I'm typically going to drive to it. It's just easy to do so. But I also will fly out, obviously, to Arizona. I'll fly to Florida. I'll fly to a lot of other places. So it just depends on how close it is. I really enjoy driving as well. So if it makes sense and it's economical, I'll do that instead.
What's your go-to when you're driving? Are you a podcast listener? Or are you sick of it because of your own shows that you do 3 hours every week?
Yeah, I just had the conversation with my daughter the other day. I should try and like get smarter, and maybe I know all these years in, I should probably be downloading audiobooks. I don't, but I should. I've become a little bit spoiled. I'm a YouTube Premium. I subscribe to YouTube Premium. So actually, I just go in, just like when I'm going to, even when I fly, I'll download a ton of stuff onto my YouTube, right onto my phone, and then I'll watch it in usually double speed whenever. So I'll catch up on politics. I'll catch up on other things that way. But in theory, I should probably get like an Audible account and, get smarter and do books.
I was just saying I need to get funnier. I think like that's what helps with podcasts. Okay, so I usually start the show this way, and I guess now I skipped it. But in your own words, who are you and what are you passionate about?
I'm the disc golf guy. And that sounds a little bit crazy, but that nickname came about, or I kind of gave it to myself after reading a book by Gary Vaynerchuk called Crush It. And I realized everywhere I went, people just referred to me, just like you might be in a certain circle. Oh, the podcast guy, or the pickleball guy, or whatever the hobby or the passion that someone is.
Passion all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So whatever it might be, that's kind of what I was just leaning into. But I found a sport many years ago, almost 35 years ago, and after playing and getting started in it, I just developed all sorts of different inroads to what was the sport of disc golf, and now I find myself mostly doing media and traveling around trying to consume as much disc golf, we'll say interactions and disc golf experiences, while then trying to share those with the world as best as I can, whether it's through post-production, video coverage, or if it's just through Instagram stories or whatever the case might be. I'm trying to take it all in.
Dude, I'm excited to share this story because when you started this, and again, we will come back to this, but that wasn't a job. That wasn't like being a media sportscaster in disc golf was not a thing. You made it into a thing. And part of it is like that disc golf is just one of those sports where it's kind of like skateboarding. Skateboarding is much larger, but in the same way of like, people think of like going pro, but like most pros don't make any money and they're like putting their career on hold. And at some point they're like, well, what do I need to like do something that pays me something, you know what I mean? I can't just keep doing this forever. Let's go back earlier though. I listened to some other of your podcasts, which is impossible to listen to them all because you started yours like 10 years ago. There's like 500 3-hour long episodes on top of everything else that you've done. But still, I didn't actually hear the story of the first time that you played disc golf.
So I was introduced to it at summer camp. It was between 7th and 8th grade. and they had at this camp us throwing regular frisbees. I remember it had Jeffrey the Giraffe, Toys R Us, R.I.P. To Toys R Us, right? They had a regular frisbee, and they had us throwing into grocery baskets. Like when you only go in and get a few items.
Yeah.
They had them hanging on trees, and they had them on picnic tables, and they had them like stationed throughout. And you threw a frisbee, and you tried to get it into this little red grocery basket, and I fell in love. I mean, it just was a random activity that camp had.
Sure.
And I remember I skipped dinner, which was a big deal back then even. As a pudgy little kid, I skipped, and I was like, I can't get enough of this. And I did really well in the little competition we had. And then when I got back from camp a week or so later, I went to a local Play It Again type store. I found out that there was regular discs that were made for this. And then I went to another course, and there we were hitting 4x4 post in the ground. This is in Appleton, Wisconsin. We're hitting 4x4 post at Pierce Park. And I'm like, this is the dumbest thing ever. Because I didn't follow it, and the course was dilapidated, and there wasn't a real good map for it. And I mean, we're talking 1993, 1992, somewhere in that neighborhood right now. And then I found out there was actually a course nearby called Plowman Park, which was made famous for other terrible reasons later. But Plowman Park had disc golf baskets. And you threw a disc from a designated tee area into a disc golf basket that caught it, and I was just hooked.
What were those baskets like? Did they weren't like what they are now with the
They're
pole.
similar. They were very similar.
Oh, okay.
They were actual disc golf baskets. I believe at the time they were Mach 3s, which was an industry leading brand and type. Now we have hundreds of disc golf baskets. At that time there was probably only 5 that existed. Right. This was one of the industry standard disc golf baskets. And there was 18 of them out at the course, and every single day I had to bike 5 miles uphill both ways. I don't know. I was completely hooked on it, and then I slowly got every single one of my friends into playing. And they'd go out, and I'd hand them one of my 2 discs. They'd play with that, and then when we got back, they would go buy a disc of their own, and then that initial disc would get passed on to the next person. It was the starter disc for every person.
Sure.
And just got absolutely hooked on it.
Do you remember what that disc was?
I still have it.
Oh my God.
I have.
Is it in the background for your recordings?
It's not, but it should be. The disc I bought was an Innova Lynx, which they told me, well, if you're new, this is most like a regular frisbee, and it turns out it's actually kind of a terrible disc to have. But anyway, that was my first. And then at the time, the other one that I bought was for my girlfriend. She went with me the first time. She ended up hating it. Anyway, but that is a Lightning Corsair, which by today's standards is junk upon all junk, but it didn't matter. That disc was, in my opinion, is one of the most influential discs that I've ever touched. I've got over 10,000 frisbees. Wow. This disc is probably one of the most impactful ones because it's the one I handed to friend after friend after friend. And then as soon as they were done for the day and they were hooked, they bought their own. And then this disc got, handed to the next person. I still have it. It's a red Lightning Corsair is the name of it. And like I said, by today's standards, even then it was practically junk, but it did the job.
Yeah, but I mean, like any equipment, in the same way I'm sure you can attest with video cameras and all that type of stuff, your skill with the equipment matters so much more than what the equipment is.
Exactly.
Especially that early on. You're not competing on a pro level. You're still just trying to figure out the mechanics of getting things smooth, in which case having a way better disc isn't going to drastically change your game at that point. You have to be able to I always try to say, if you can figure out your equipment and max out what you can do with that equipment first, you're going to learn so much more than just spending the money on the next level of whatever. So at the time, how many courses do you think even existed in Wisconsin that had baskets? There couldn't have been that many.
There were less than 25.
Wow.
So again, we're talking early 90s, and we used to have a map. It still exists today, and now in a lot more better digital forms and apps, but there was a map that pinpointed where every course was in the state. I happened to be in the Appleton area, and we had what we called the square. We had Appleton, Stevens Point area, Madison, and Milwaukee. Those were the 4, which makes sense. Those are also 4 of the more populated areas. Green Bay didn't come in until a couple years later. Sheboygan was one of the early adopters, but basically, that quadrant or that square kind of defined a lot of the disc golf, and then obviously expanded throughout. But there was less than 25 courses at that time. In 2001, when we put in a course just a few miles from here, it was the 50th course. So in 7, 8, 10 years or whatever it was, or excuse me, 95 to 2001, we doubled. We got to 50. In 2001 to now 2025, we have over 400.
Wow.
So clearly
It
a
exploded,
massive
yeah.
explosion here.
Similar to skateboarding, you know, like everyone talks about skateboarding dying in the 90s because in the 70s, 80s, like all the pool skating and stuff was a thing. There's all these like huge concrete parks, and a lot of those actually got demolished. Like they don't exist anymore because skateboarding pretty much died until, and this was actually while Tony Hawk was like pro, that it like died and came back. But really until media hit, you know, with like X Games and all that, skateboarding was pretty much dead, you know? And then since then, now it's become like a massive thing. It's in the Olympics and all of that. And similar stuff happens with anything. And that's why your role in the community, so many people like would refer to you as like a legend in the community and so impactful because media is what is the introduction for so many people. And that's the funny thing is people will be like, oh, you played Tony Hawk or you like Bam, that's so lame, or whatever thing they point at. It's like, yeah, but that's what got you into it. That was the first thing you came across, you know? And that's why I was talking to you off mic again about like the short form clips and all that too. It's like any way you can introduce somebody to something, then if they like that, then they'll go dive deep into either your show or somebody else's or whatever, and they'll figure out what's cool about all this. What was your first tournament? It's not like there was a shop that had posters that was advertising there's a $500 cash prize, you guys all need to come out. What was the situation for that?
It was local. I was in Appleton area again, and I just so happened to stumble into a couple of the greatest humans ever in Tom Jenkins and John Turlap, who were a couple of locals. They were older than me. They were almost of my father's age, so to speak. Again, I'm a young punk. I'm a teenager, and to see people out there like carrying a bag of discs and like walking instead of running, because we were just like so excited to run to hole, and we're like, oh, and then they upon coming across them at the course, we found out there was a league, and then from a league we found out, oh, every so many weekends there's actually a tournament. So it was just like, it was a very natural progression of like getting more and more serious. And I always liken it to bowling. Like millions of people will go bowling this week, millions of them. A little more serious might get you into a league. A little more serious might get you into a city or a regional tournament. And then obviously if you're hardcore, you'll try and find a way to get on a tour or PBA or whatever. I liken that a lot to disc golf. Like you can take it as serious as you want, but if you don't, that's fine too, because there's millions and millions of people who will just play recreationally and don't even care who the best bowler in the world is or who the best disc golfer in the world is or what the best equipment is, because that's not what they're there for.
Yeah,
they're
well, and
just
again,
there for the day.
It comes down to the media of like there just isn't huge televised bowling events. So people
anymore.
don't, well, yeah, well, for sure. But just any of that stuff. So people they just aren't that invested. They don't care that much. There's not a bunch of video games that are popular. Like the Tony Hawk video game had a huge impact on making skateboarding popular. It's like all of those like pop culture things are what bring people in. So at that point in time, becoming a pro, I'm sure you had met some, shortly after that, you realized even the pros like they're pro, but they have jobs because you can't really make a living from it at that point in time anyways. So when you were going to school, I know that you like started playing kind of professionally in college. Like what was even the motivation at the time? Were you fully thinking this is just like a fun thing, there's no future in this at all?
Correct. Even your top players in, the 9-time world champ who became 9-time in 1999, Ken Climo, like was still roofing on the weekends, or I'm sorry, on the weekdays actually, because he was playing on the weekends.
Yeah.
Some of your most dominant players of all time were not doing it exclusively. Yeah. And so in order to become pro, it was just a natural progression of, hey, you did well at this amateur level, you're kind of forced to go to the next level, and then the next level and the next level. And then so it's just assuming your skills are getting better, it's just a natural thing. You're paying, at that time, you're paying $40. You might play for 3 rounds or 4 rounds over 2 days on Saturday and Sunday, and when it's all said and done, you're going to win $250. Like your winnings were not exceeding your overall cost of being there for the
travel budget.
Exactly, that alone. So it was never about the economics of it. It was just when I got to college, and then I naturally progressed into playing as a professional around 2000. It was. That's when I started realizing I loved a lot of the behind the scenes stuff as well. I enjoyed playing, and thankfully I was one of the decent players in the state, top 10 player in the state. Again, that's not enough to earn any kind of living. And so that's when I discovered that I loved organizing tournaments. That's when I was helping with youth groups and church camps and doing demonstrations and doing clinics, helping design a course or be part of it. Organizing tournaments was probably the number one thing, though, that got me really excited. Like, hey, 80 people, instead of me just going to a tournament, 80 or 100 or whatever could come to wherever I'm hosting a tournament, and I could use some of my newfound computer skills in the early 2000s, right, to put on a well-run, efficient tournament. And that's what kind of got me those behind the scenes, and then it kind of just evolved from there into a bunch of other things.
Yeah, well, I think when you're younger, you idolize these pros. You think of them in just a different light, like they're these gods or something. And then you meet them and you realize, oh, this guy has to go to his roofing job. Doesn't make you think any less of him, but it does make you think maybe that's not like the path I thought it was, or like it's not all what I thought it would be. So maybe I don't have to be pro. However, I think, and it's a similar way with skateboarding, I was never good enough to be a pro skateboarder, like not even at the bottom level, not even close. But I knew I wanted to be involved. And by thinking of like, well, what are different ways I could be involved in skateboarding for a living? And opening a skate shop was like my way in, because I like talking to kids. I was always in sales. I was always business minded, and it just kind of made sense. And really, I had a more sustainable career that way. And I didn't have to be gone all the time. And I didn't have any pressure on me. And I wasn't worried about getting injured. It was like, as a kid, I wouldn't have thought that would be like the best possible option. But as an adult, I was like, whoa, this is actually better. So at what point, I know that you were working it was Kohl's, right?
Yeah. Kohl,
okay.
After college, I worked at Kohl's headquarters, which is just a few minutes from here in the Menominee Falls area. I was at their actual headquarters doing IT stuff. Yeah.
So at what point did you like start to have the wheels turning of maybe I can build a business on like through Frisbee golf? Because it takes a while. I know you started with media, but it's not like they immediately were like, here's $2,000 to come this weekend. And you're like doing the math. If I do every weekend, I can, like, it wasn't like that.
Yeah, it wasn't anything like that at all. In fact, it was more of, I was doing a lot of the behind the scenes of running tournaments, working with our disc golf club, running a club at UW Milwaukee, doing all of those types of things. And around 2001, I decided that I would actually become an LLC. And I thought, hey, if I'm going to go do any of this stuff to promote disc golf, let's start looking to some of the write-offs and, being able to actually have somewhat of a side hustle.
At least cover some costs.
Exactly. Yeah. And have some of the things that come with being an LLC. And then actually there were some parks departments and other businesses that would say, hey, we want you to come give a demonstration at GE or wherever, at some business, but we need you to have like insurance or a license or something, or who are we going to write the check to? They wanted to write it to a business. Right. So that's when I decided to become an LLC at that point. That was 2001 when I officially incorporated as an LLC. And then I was still at Kohl's for another 2 years. I graduated also in 2001. Okay. And then I was at Kohl's corporate for 2 years. And then on a random Friday afternoon, or Friday morning, I should say, I came in. My boss at the time said something about when I had arrived, even though I was a salaried person. And it was like a snarky comment about my time clock or something. And I turned on the computer in 100% spontaneity, wrote up my letter of resignation and handed it to her, and eventually they walked me out a few minutes later because I had control of everyone's credit. Oh, sure. Like I could literally go in and change, hey, you don't know anything on your $10,000 Kohl's credit. Like I had that kind of access at the time. So I got walked out, and I called my mom and I said, this is it. Like I'm going to give myself 1 year. I get chills just thinking about it. I told my mom, I'm going to give myself 1 year to make disc golf a go. Like the demos, the clinics, the sales, the running of tournaments, the running of leagues. Like media wasn't even a thought yet. That didn't even exist. I told her I want to do all of these other things. I said, if I can't do this in a year, I'll go back to getting a real job. But I've got my hands in so many cookie jars right now. I have to do this now. And that was the last time I had a full-time job.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times it's just when you're young enough, if you're willing to take that risk, or you can take that risk. It's funny. I opened my store when I was 23, and there were a lot of people that were like, I can't believe you would do that, because I was working for Verizon making a lot of money. But to me, I remember talking to my ex-wife at the time, and I was like, our daughter's like not even a year old. The house we bought is way under budget, what we thought we could afford. if I'm gonna like take a huge risk and make no money, like this is kind of the best time.
Now's the time.
You know, maybe the time would have been before kids, but in general,
Sure.
it was like the sooner I take this risk, the better, because then I can crawl out of whatever hole that I, put myself in. And it took me 3 months to like pay off any debt I took to open the shop, and I was like golden. I didn't make a lot of money, but
Sure.
it's just like once you dive in and you're forced to figure it out, you end up figuring it out if you care about it enough. So when you quit your job, you said you gave yourself a year. At that point, how much income or like how much do you think you made in that first calendar year? And was it just enough where you're like, I think I could double that next year and it's more feasible? Or what did it look like?
I ended up doing a couple of things. I'd pick up an odd job, or I would contract with someone. A friend had another job that I could help out with. So it wasn't exclusively disc golf. And I
Sure.
definitely did not make as much as I would have made at Kohl's
Right.
For my annual salary. But it was really, without being delusional, it was really getting to the end of that year and being like, okay, I'm not quite there, but there's something here.
You can see it growing.
And that's what I needed. And it took some convincing of my mother at the time, who was always a big supporter, but she also really taught me about like the hustle and working hard and work ethic. And that's what I think she saw me still willing to do. And it was another 6-7 years, honestly. Like there was a lot of lean years, so to speak, where it was like, okay, things are tight. I never really fell into any real debt of any kind, but I also was not making significant money. It was a matter of what really felt like treading water.
Yeah.
And that even started, as I found media and started to develop media, that carried for another 2 or 3 years even in my media career.
Yeah.
And when finally someone's like, hey, I'll give you $500 to come do what you're already doing, I was like, oh my God, I've made it. This
Sure.
is it. Like
Yeah.
this is like there was not paid disc golf media for many years.
Yeah.
And so finally when that started turning into a thing, whether it was 2012, 2013, somewhere in that neighborhood, it was just an entirely different world. And so I was kind of helping. I was one of the people that was developing disc golf media, but it was still uncharted territory for all of us. So
Right.
everybody that got any kind of exposure at that time was definitely, getting it on the cheap because it was free, or I was losing money to go do the work that I was doing. And I even didn't have a goal of making money in it necessarily.
Wow.
I just knew I loved it. And then when it started making money, I was like, oh, okay, well, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And then I would, kind of go from there.
But it's cool when somebody can identify an opportunity like that. Even if you weren't really intentionally thinking this is going to make money, there's far too many people out there that are waiting for an example to look at before they want to try to take a path, right? Because they're like, well, it's not possible because no one's doing it. And it's also on the other side, it's like, well, maybe it's more possible because no one's doing it. You know what I mean? It's not an overly like saturated place for something yet. And so when you're creating something like that, you're providing a solution for these people who want to market and advertise their, their companies as well as their events and all of that. At some point, somebody with a marketing sense who's working with them is like, maybe we should ask him to cover this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And especially early on, I'm sure you did it for dirt cheap, so they were getting a steal.
Yeah, I mean, for a couple of years, I was doing it at $0.
Sure.
And all of a sudden, I mean, I somewhere on a hard drive, I have my ad deck, which I'll put in air quotes there because I didn't know what I was really doing. But I was like, my YouTube channel got 5,000 views this year, or 5,000. This video got 1,000 views. That was a big deal.
Yeah.
I remember getting so excited about that. Or the PDGA, our governing body, would take a video recap I did from a day at the World Championships where I was playing, but then I'd go out and do some interviews as well after I played, because playing then became very much secondary. And then I would put out a video and they would put it on their front page, which got, umpteen million, overall hits in a month.
Yeah.
And then that would get me to 1,000 views or 1,500 or 2,500 views on my YouTube. And I remember taking those analytics, and those were huge in disc golf. And little did we know, what eventually would come of it. But
but
it's
brands
crazy
didn't
where it
know.
started.
Yeah, but brands didn't know either.
No.
Like right now, if you're an influencer or YouTuber or whatever, and you're trying to negotiate a contract, the numbers they're expecting to see are out of this world.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, and still, even to this day, a lot of companies have no idea what they're talking about with that because they haven't hired a 25-year-old, to take care of their social medias yet. When they say even 1,000 views on a video on your YouTube channel, since there's nobody else in the space, with a YouTube channel, all of a sudden you're the primo candidate for anything that they could possibly want to make that's put on YouTube. And I'm sure as time goes on, the wheels are just turning of like, well, if I could do that, then maybe I could do this, which means maybe I could do that. And at some point you're like, well, all major TV sports, people want to watch live. There's people who can't drive to this tournament who want to see it live. Maybe I could do it live. When did you come up with that idea of doing that? Because you're the first, right?
No, I am not. What I felt like we did, me and my best friend, Johnny V, I felt like we built a better mousetrap is what we did, in the sense that, which feels like such an antiquated analogy these days. But anyway, I think you got to be of a certain age to even get that.
Sure.
But Disc Golf Planet TV, a couple of good friends, John Dusler, Terry Roddy. Terry Roddy specifically still works, I think, for CBS Golf. Like, he had been 20, 30-year veteran, so he's following around and, rubs shoulders with the likes of Tiger and Phil Mickelson back in the day, whatever.
Yeah.
He was all of the, a lot of the technical aptitude to it. And then another gentleman, John Dusler, out of Pennsylvania, they were good friends. They dove into the really serious side of trying to broadcast disc golf live. That was 2008, 2009, somewhere in that neighborhood, maybe 2010. They were diving into it. And it was at that point, because I started my vlog in 2010, and I knew him already, John this is, it was a few weeks into them doing that. They're like, oh, well, we need like somebody to talk. You know disc golf. They knew me,
sure,
but disc golf. How about you do this? And it was essentially a volunteer component. I may have gotten paid a few meals, but it was basically, hey, we're going to put a mic in front of 20 different people and have them all talk, and we're going to kind of work through this and all learn together.
Yeah.
And I just continued to do it. I just enjoyed it. I was like, I'm going to go to Arizona and you're going to just have me talk disc golf? Sure.
Yeah.
So we did that for a couple of years, and lent the little expertise we had and technical skills in any way, we lent them to Disc Golf Planet. I remember I was doing membership fulfillment and sending out Frisbees on their behalf, whatever. Sure. I was helping in any way I could.
Yeah.
And then my buddy and I were like, well, there's this other system, and if we do it this way, and then we don't rent a satellite, and we don't use this platform, and then YouTube came along with offering live streaming, which previously had cost tens of thousands of dollars through other platforms. We're like, we could put out the same product, but for a fraction of the cost.
Right.
It might not be exponentially better, but it would be the same, and it'd literally be a couple $1,000s instead of $30,000 for a weekend.
Sure.
And that's what kind of started us in the live sphere as well. I remember thinking, live's way too expensive. There's too many hurdles. There's so much going on. I never want to touch that. And then next thing you know, we're doing live. So
sure.
I started my channel in January of 2010. It was interviews. It was reviewing stuff. It was talking about disc golf in a vlog format.
Yeah.
And then around 2013, 2014 is when we started we started another company called Smashbox, and then that's what got us to broadcasting disc golf live. And then we essentially became the main live entity for about 3 or 4 years.
Sure.
And then we ultimately, I don't want to say got gobbled up, but we ultimately became part of the Pro Tour as a fixture. And then they took it from our small operation and then had all the money to expand it to a massive operation. Sure. So what's now being put out in a live capacity has anywhere from 25 to 30 people touching it. It used to be 3 of us.
Right.
One producer / director, me as a cameraman and commentator, and then maybe one other friend. There was 3 of us. Now 30 people are doing that job.
Yeah, but I mean, kind of the best part of it is because the budget's so small, the expectations aren't that high either. You're going into it and fumbling, and it's kind of okay that you're fumbling because they're not paying you a ton of money to do it. And when you're like contracted out like that, you don't have a boss that's like looking at it saying you're screwing up on this, you're screwing up on that. What was your most embarrassing moment early on that you look back on? You're like, I can't believe that happened. That was live.
I don't know if embarrassing is quite the word, but maybe the best lesson that we learned was broadcast day number 1. We went live in Sylmar, California, in Sylmar, to cover an event. It was in April of 2014, and we didn't have enough batteries to keep. We tried to do 3 rounds, and typically you're doing like 1 or 2 rounds of disc golf.
Yeah.
We tried to somehow cover 3 rounds, and we just didn't have enough external batteries to keep both the live unit running as well as the actual camera running.
Yeah.
So at one point we're like, okay, well, we have to go off air because we're going to go charge this stuff so that we can come on air later for the concluding moments.
Yeah.
And so that was like, okay. Yeah, and to spend a couple $100s on backup batteries was not something that was in our budget at all, because we're on the absolute definition of a shoestring budget as it is, and we didn't know where it was going. But that was one of the best lessons to learn of, like, and I think it's probably good for anyone in any kind of electronics, video or otherwise, is have more batteries than you ever think you'll need.
Yeah, well, I mean, same way with having like extra memory cards.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Or extra, like I had, and I've had memory cards just like stop while I'm recording and whatever. And everyone has faced technical things. And one thing that I've tried to be kind to myself about is even people who are very established still have technical things happen often. Like I remember the first time I had to tell a guest that like something got screwed up and I was dreading it for so long. And then I realized like, oh, they're like, they almost expect something to happen.
Yeah.
You know, because it happens so often. Like, and I've been on a bunch of other people's shows and stuff nowadays. And every time when I get a message like, oh, this audio, or, oh, we need to do this, I'm like, yeah, that's a lot more common than I feel like people realize. So you said it was like 6-7 years. What was it that made it where your income, not that you like make a ton of money because you're still not Joe Buck in major newscasting. I don't think there's that much money to be made in what you do specifically, just because of that niche. But at what point was it a living where you're like, okay, this is like comfortable enough that I feel like this could be a long time, like a full-time career moving forward?
Yeah, I would say around 2015, 2016 was when the Disc Golf Pro Tour started. Okay. So we've had disc golf tournaments, thousands of them all year long, big and small, and either I was running them or part of them or whatever the case might be. In 2016 is when a gentleman named Steve Dodge said, hey, I'm putting together like 6 to 10 elite level events. And he said, part of me starting this tour is we're going to guarantee live coverage at all of them. Now, at that point, only maybe 20 total tournaments had ever been covered live. And now he's saying somewhere between 6 to 10 to 15 tournaments every year will be covered live. And that was exclusively with us because we were the only provider.
Sure.
So that guaranteed us work, so to speak, for all of those weekends. And then it was at that point I was established enough in post-production video production in that I would fill in all the other weekends of getting hired to go film an event, edit it together that night, and then release it on YouTube the next day.
Sure.
So between the two, I was just actively juggling live for 10 to 15 weekends a year, and then post-production almost every other weekend I could get contracted for. And it was at that point where I was like, okay, these plus the 100 other things I'm doing,
right?
There's a livable wage here.
Yeah, obviously wages go up, and I'm not asking how much you get paid now for that, but back then, how much were they paying you guys to come out for the weekend?
Yeah, we were paying ourselves. You know, we basically, the tour said, hey, we think we can budget X amount. I don't know if it was $5 or $8 grand or whatever it was. And again, our crew was like 3 or 4 people.
Plus flights you got to pay for. And
plus all the expenses,
right.
Plus data, which was insanely expensive at the time.
Yeah.
And all the other equipment that we were making these investments in. And it was a couple of years later when what we call Disc Golf Pro Tour version 2 came along, when basically the ownership switched from that one gentleman, Steve Dodge, over to an entirely different entity because he had run out of money. Sure. So then someone else came in, kind of saved the day, and then made a massive reinvestment in everything. And then that's when things got considerably more comfortable. But we were talking, I don't remember if it was 3, 4, 5 grand.
Sure.
And you're talking about paying 2 or 3 people with that, plus expenses. I mean, that's when you're like a band. That's when you're, 4 guys are in a single hotel room, and you're doing everything to cut every single corner.
Yeah, but sometimes those make for the best memories. You know what I mean?
I'm
because
cheap
you're
already.
Just traveling with your friends.
Yeah.
And it's like you're just living life with relatively carefree. You're not like, how do I make sure that this makes me enough money so that way long term this works? At that point in time, you're like, every month I can keep doing this is another good month.
Perfect. That's a great way to summarize it.
So when you started your YouTube channel, I guess, how did you, it must have been for quite a while that you didn't make any money at all from the YouTube channel. So when did you eventually monetize it? And was it just like from overall like hours watched on YouTube, or did you start getting partnerships with some brands and stuff?
No, even to this day, I don't really have many partnerships. Maybe, I don't know if that's an act of laziness or more so an awkwardness of asking people for money.
Okay.
There's now, don't get me wrong, there's certainly people within our industry that want to support coverage.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I go to a tournament, someone may say, hey, you know, whether it's an ad they want to put in or a mention or whatever, or recognition, there is some of that, but that's all endemic. That's all within our sport. Yeah. And so it kind of feels weird to always going back to the well over and over, because they're also getting pulled by the tournament. They're getting pulled by sponsored players. They're getting asked by all these other people all the time. And I feel like we're always going to the same well, so to speak.
Yeah, but you're not asking for a favor.
No.
You're preventing them with another opportunity of where they're going to put their money for marketing. And that was something that I really had to struggle with for a while too, of like, I don't want to ask too much of these people, but these people have a pie that they're looking to spend, and they're trying to figure out where is the most effective place to put it. And your audience is hyper niche. Mm-hmm. And if you had in every episode, this is the newest disc by Innova and this is what's cool about it, they're looking to, and they're already putting money into marketing. Mm-hmm. It would make sense, and it's not asking a favor.
It's funny because it took a long time for any of the companies to fully recognize that, because again, the numbers were small for any of us YouTubers. There was only a handful of us that were doing any disc golf. And then finally, as it continued to grow, I naturally somehow got monetized on YouTube. That wasn't by any specific or concerted effort. Again, I was naive in thinking like you could make real money on YouTube.
Sure.
So I remember after a league night one night, I'm like, oh, look at my video. It's made me 3 cents, you know, and like that was kind of funny at the time.
Yeah.
And now obviously they can be a lot more profitable. But one of the things that was really brilliant that, again, my best friend told me about was Patreon. And that was a way that you could go out and put out your work and then have the people that wanted to support it. And that became but it became another avenue of actually having something a little bit more consistent.
How long ago was it that you did that?
I was the first disc golfer on Patreon, and I bet you I was one of the first couple thousand ever users of Patreon, and that was 2013 or 14.
Oh, whoa.
We're talking about like the first days of Patreon.
Were you putting extra content, or was it just early access?
No, I was just putting the thing that I always loved about Patreon, and they've shifted their model considerably since, but Patreon at the time, you only got paid for stuff that you produced and you put on there, and then you quote unquote charge your viewers for.
Okay.
And so if I made 50 videos in a week, or in a month, we'll say, you could have people
pay
support
$1
those
a video,
or whatever they wanted. Or if I made $0, I got paid $0, which is good for me. That makes you hustle, makes you work. But I love that they could cap it too, and they still can. You could say, hey, I want to give you $1 for every video you put up, but if you go crazy this month and put up 50 videos, I'm capping it at 10, and I still love and appreciate and applaud every single person that does that. And so that was a really big deal to me. So monetization happened. I didn't really go after any hardcore partnerships, and I still don't have any. I still have 0 outside of disc golf partnerships.
Wow. Which
is really dumb. As you're looking at
it's hard to do because
what are you doing, idiot?
Well, there's just like not that many companies, and most of them just have small budgets, because as big as disc golf is, it's still tiny.
Yeah. But when I'm putting out, I guess it's always relative, right? Because I may put out a video of coverage that's 35, 40 minutes long, and it's going to get anywhere between 3,000 and 103,000 views.
Sure.
Depending on who's playing, right?
Yeah.
So if I average, let's say 30 or 40 or 50,000 views, like that feels significant to me. Yeah. And I think it is significant, especially when you're talking about that long. And obviously we have all the analytics and whatnot to see how long they're watching.
I'm more talking about the brands, as far as like there's only so many, and their marketing budgets aren't Nike.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Yes. So when you talk about brands within disc golf, there's only so many. They only have so many budgets. And now they actually have all these choices of all these different styles of content creators, right? Like, and a lot of the ways that I feel like our brands support disc golf is through like we'll call them ambassador teams, like street teams they would call them. I think of like, hey, we don't give you a lot, we'll give you some product you're basically going to become a billboard for us, and we're just giving you a little bit of
they
product.
sponsor them.
And I feel like they sponsor them, and they get a lot of, well, I don't know if they get a lot, but they do a lot of that, and I feel like that's a way that they spend a lot of their marketing budget. I don't know, it's tough. It's funny, because I know like all the major brands, and I have good relationships with, I feel like, all of them, but it's like a fine line of how much do I ever want to ask of any of them.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just like, you got to change the thought of like, it's not an ask. It's just presenting an opportunity. You're not saying, hey, do me this favor. It's if you think this would be valuable to you, here's an option, just so you're aware. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And they do, if it wasn't beneficial to them, they wouldn't go through, you know what I mean? They wouldn't follow through with that. That was just something with myself, not to like preach to you, but that was something with myself that I really had to like come to terms with and figure out, you know, in order to make a podcast in Wisconsin actually feasible. At first, when I got my first contract, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm getting this from these people. And then as I got involved with bigger brands and was getting bigger paychecks from people and whatever, then all of a sudden I'm seeing these larger entities paying me, you know, whatever, and telling me, we find great value in this. This is valuable. Yeah. This is great. We love what you're doing. And then I'm like, well, but these smaller people, I feel like I'm asking a huge favor of them to pay me a quarter as much. And I'm looking at these views and I'm comparing it to like what you would pay for promotions through YouTube or anywhere else. And I'm like, I'm actually, you know, if they don't have a budget, they don't have a budget. And that's totally fine. But I'm not really asking a favor. I'm just giving them an opportunity for which way they want to go. And I don't think that like major athletes like Giannis or something thinks that, you know, these companies that are paying him are doing him a huge favor. Yeah. He's like, the marketing that I'm giving you is making you money. Like, that's why you're doing it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it. So anyways, one of the ways to build a career around anything that's niche is by having multiple streams of income, which most people I know who are self-employed in a niche have multiple streams of income because things are very inconsistent and like you can't count on it. So currently, I know you've had a lot of different businesses like the Disc in a Box. Currently, how many different streams of income do you have? Not what you get paid from them, but like from what different businesses and things do you do assemble? Yeah.
I mean, I guess I could pretty much now narrow it down to, I have my live contracting with the Disc Golf Pro Tour. That's 15-ish weeks a year. Okay. Weeks or / weekends a year. So I'm committed to that as one of my major income revenue streams. Post-production is another 15 to 20 weekends a year as well, where last weekend I was contracted to be in Colorado. In a couple weeks I'll be contracted to go to another, to Arizona.
And the event organizer's paying you to come out and do
an
it.
Event organizer and or that overall event somehow will then contract me to come and do it in a post-production format. Okay. So there's live and post-production. Right there is 15 to 40 of my weeks / weekends of the year. I also we do a podcast on, Tuesday nights, which is not overly lucrative, largely because, again, we don't go after any brand deals. We have a decent, viewership and audience,
and they watch for 3 hours, which helps.
But we don't actively like. It almost feels weird to sell when we're doing, as my buddy says, we're having a conversation we'd be having anyway. We just happen to do it with microphones in front of us,
sure,
and people listen to us anyway. So podcast is a stream of revenue, and then selling discs and running tournaments are two other ones that have really fallen by the wayside, but used to be a lot of my bread and butter.
Sure.
In that, before I was covering and traveling to tournaments to do media, I was running 6 to 10 tournaments a year as well, and that would generate a little bit of money. It would at least always keep my inventory fresh.
Yeah.
That I was buying discs. I can buy them at a wholesale price. I sell them or give them away at or offer them up as prizes at a retail price. I'm making the difference.
Right.
And then there's a number of stores and shops that actually buy discs from me as well. So I'm kind of a distributor to them, and that's a couple different places around the state. Once in a while, I'll do some course design, which I'll get compensated for, but I don't actively seek those out. But that can be a revenue stream. And then I sell cardboard boxes that people ship Frisbees in, which, again, never in my life or career would I think, I'm gonna design a box that people are shipping their most valuable discs around the state or the country in, that's going to be useful to them, and I'm going to be, schlepping cardboard boxes. But it's all within disc golf, and it's actually a perfect fit, and it makes perfect sense.
So that is the best reason to create a business, is when there isn't a service or a product that you currently need, but you can't buy it because it's just not made. That if you can identify that, and again, going back to what I said before, of that's the perfect example of you don't have to see somebody who's already doing it. If there isn't anyone doing it, it's not because it's not possible. A lot of the times it just means nobody has taken that chance yet. And again, when you're self-employed, you have to get creative. It's just like, is what it is. I make a little bit of money from like working at this music festival, and then I get a little bit of money to do this remote interview for this person, and then I get a little bit of money to do product placement. And then it's just kind of like, you got to get creative if you want to figure out a way to make it work. And different people have different levels of hustle that is financially driven. Clearly, me and you are not the type that spend all of our time trying to do that. I'm one of those people that like hustles enough to make sure that my bills are paid, and then I kind of let it fall by the wayside, and I don't put in as much energy as I should until I'm starting to be like, I can't afford this thing. I should probably try to figure out a little bit more money somehow out of this. Okay, so I know me and you can talk for like a very extended period of time. So I'm going to have some of these questions. I'm going to try to cap you at a minute. Try not to talk about them together. Okay. Because there's a lot to get through.
I like to talk.
I know, me too. Okay. What's the funniest comment you've ever seen on your page?
People just flat out ripping on me, saying something that's just dead wrong. I guess I don't know if I have a really good one, but a lot of people like to go to the low-hanging fruit of just ripping on me for being overweight or not knowing what I'm talking about. And it's like, I've been around forever. Yeah, I'm not saying I'm never wrong, but I'm not an idiot either.
Dude, when you put out 3+ hours of content a week, you're going to be wrong sometimes. It's pretty hard to like, it's pretty hard to hit on every single joke and be right about every single thing. I had somebody comment the other day, you really need to go to the dentist. Oh. I'm like, dog, these gold teeth are voluntary. My teeth are totally fine. Okay, top three courses in Wisconsin.
Well, that's easy in that I start with Sandy Point Resort and Disc Golf Ranch. Not a paid ad, but my favorite place on the planet. Then I would probably say I'm a little old school. I like Dretzka Park in Milwaukee. That's got some old school roots and vibes there as well. And then again, if I go old school, I'd have to say Plowman Park, but nobody else would agree with that. So I'll go Gray Fox Disc Golf Course in Kenosha County.
If people had an unlimited budget to travel to any tournament like you apparently do, no, just kidding. What would be the top 3 tournaments internationally anywhere? People can only go to 3 this year, but budget's not a problem. What 3 are they going to go to?
You would go to the European Open / the World Championships, which actually just happened in Finland. Monumental for sure. So you got to go to Finland. I would say it's not even that budget difficult. Go to Thailand, where I help run a tournament on a really fun island. And then I would say go to I was going to say Japan, but go to Maple Hill. Go to out by Massachusetts. Go to Maple Hill and check out that event,
dude. I went to Thailand for 3 weeks and Japan for 3 weeks. And those 2 countries, if anyone can afford to figure out a way to go, absolutely go. And if you go to Koh Samui, you need to go diving, dude. You should do some disc golfing, but you should go diving if you ever go there. So your nickname that you gave yourself of the disc golf guy, people I've heard just from your show have some pretty sweet nicknames. What are your favorite 3 nicknames of players in disc golf?
Nicknames of other players?
Yeah. Who's got the best ones?
I mean, he so rightfully earned it is McBeast, Paul Macbeth. Paul Macbeth, he had the Tiger Woods effect. So we called him McBeast, and he would go beast mode on us, in 2015, most dominant player that there was, for a good part of a decade. So McBeast is one. I think one of it's classic and maybe timeless is the Champ. That's Ken Climo. Like, he's just known as the Champ. Won 9 consecutive world titles, won 12 overall. Arguably the only other player that could be in that greatest of all time conversation with Paul Macbeth. So the Champ. Another one. I'll go off I'll sideline to or switch it to Eagle McMahon. Eagle is his real name. And he plays disc golf. So if you play golf or disc golf and your name is Eagle, like one of the best scores you can get is an Eagle. It's not even a nickname. It's his real name. So I got to go to Eagle McMahon.
So some people, it's like pulling teeth to get them to talk on a mic. Other people, you can't get them to shut up like you. Of all the players that you've got an interview, who is the hardest to get to stop talking and who's the hardest to get to talk?
Currently, in this day and age, in 2025, Gannon Burr, you can ask him one question, how was your round? And he's to some, he's an interviewer's dream because he'll go on for 20 minutes off of one question. So Gannon Burr loves to talk. He's really insightful. It's great that he does it. And someone who doesn't talk, we give her a huge pass, understandably, but one of the best women in the world right now is Silva Saarinen of Finland, and she's just really shy. Her English is still pretty good. I give her a lot of credit. She already has to translate in her head because she's Finnish, but she's a tough interview because she's just a little bit shy naturally, and we gave her a pass on the translation, but she's a shy person.
Well, and I think a lot of these people are recognizing more and more, if you're going to make an actual career out of this, you're going to need brand deals, in which case you got to get more and more comfortable in front of the camera, because unfortunately, how well you throw the disc, as far as income-wise, isn't necessarily as important as how entertaining you are when you're throwing the disc. So a lot of these people are definitely figuring out their own like little lanes for it. Okay, if somebody's going to get into disc golf and they can only buy two, a putter and a driver, what are they going to get?
My bias, I'm not paid by anyone. My bias would be get something like a Discraft Focus as a putter or an Innova AVR, either or, to pick or choose. And then for a driver, you want something that's not going to finish too hard on you, that's going to be a little easier to throw. So I would go get something like an Innova Leopard or maybe a Discraft Thrasher are two that come to mind. Those are not going to cut real hard on you. They're going to be relatively easy to control.
Perfect. Do people have signature celebrations in disc golf, like Shooter McGavin?
We've got a couple of them.
So what's the best one?
I would say that right now still is Albert Tom out of Estonia. And he's known as the Bazooka. And if he makes a really long putt, he gets down on one knee like he's got a bazooka on his shoulder and fires. So his nickname is the Bazooka. So there's a good answer to a question earlier. But the Bazooka, he's probably got the best celebrations.
What's your best celebration? What's your go-to?
I don't know what the official term is, but kind of a double, cross, thrust with the hips with my hands. There's a lot of different interpretations and titles
Before you
for
had
it.
to be so appropriate on TV. This question, it's okay if you take longer. Should disc golf be in the Olympics? If so, or if not, why?
Should it? Yes. I don't see any downside to it. And there's actually a very long answer to this that I won't give you, but the point is we need so many countries to participate in disc golf, and once you get a certain threshold of countries, once a certain amount of countries participate and actively play it, that's like one of the thresholds to getting into it. And so if it ever gets into the Olympics, we were just in the World Games a few weeks ago in China.
I saw that.
And if it gets to the Olympics, that just means to me that disc golf has spread to that many more countries. And so that's a heartfelt thing for me. For whatever reason, we still always look at the Olympics, maybe for good reason, as like a pinnacle of sports. Kind of like how we always used to look at ESPN as the pinnacle for sports highlights.
Yeah.
Like, oh, if you don't make it on ESPN, or if you don't make it on ESPN Top 10, is it really that big of a deal? I guess same could be kind of said of disc golf. Like, that's one of the first questions you get from everyone is, oh, okay, well, that's like cool, you do that. Is that like in the Olympics? Like, that's just where everybody naturally goes to when they learn about disc golf. And so do we need it or not? I don't know, but it would be a validation for sure for our sport.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely grew skateboarding because you had all these coach parents that are like, oh, this is a real sport, I'll get my kids into it. And now especially you looking in some of these other countries, and dude, skateboarding was non-existent basically when I went to Japan like 12 years ago, however long ago. And now it's huge. And all the best skateboarders are coming out of Japan because it's just a different culture there. You have these kids that are 3 skating all day, every day that are just absolutely crushing it. If you could have any sportscaster, because once you get into an industry, you start looking for other people to like learn from, right? And you don't have a ton in yours. If you could pick any sportscaster at all on the planet who is going to be your buddy in crime for the next Worlds, who would you pick?
Oh, that's tough. Because I honestly, as sad as this is, I'll admit I don't follow a lot of other either sports and or even media side. I should do more homework if I'm being honest. But I mean, if I was going for fun and just like it being silly and crazy, like Harry Carey as a Cubs fan would be hilarious because I can only imagine the stuff he would say about disc golf being played if I'm like the host and he's color, so to speak, or whatever. So he comes to mind. Another one would probably be, I just think the little I've seen of him throughout all these decades, Bob Costas just seems like so smart, but yet thoughtful. I don't know. He seems so well-rounded, and like he's seen so many things. I would love to see his take on disc golf, right? As something that's so obscure, and he's seen so many other things in sports and otherwise. I'd love to see what he did with disc golf. And I got to give a quick shout out. Adam Zucker works for CBS and is on like Game Day and College Game Day. Like he's big time. Yeah. Officially big time. He watches disc golf. He sometimes texts me as he's watching rad. And he's an active disc golf viewer of our live shows. And I'm hoping to meet up with him someday and get some like actual official tips and tricks and training from someone in the industry. Cause I have no media background other than like, I love disc golf and I picked up a mic one day and called myself the disc golf guy. Yeah. Like that's it.
No, so, I mean, I'm the same way.
I'd love some professional insight.
The only reason that I got on a mic was because I threw a skateboard contest and realized I didn't have anyone to be on the mic.
So you did it.
So I had to be on the mic, and that's just how it went, and I didn't like anticipate that to ever like turn into anything, but I got more comfortable being on a mic over time. And then all of a sudden, because I own the skate shop, I started getting asked to be on things. So now I'm being interviewed by things. And then I'm like, oh, I was on this podcast. That was really fun. But I feel like I could do it this way. And I think it'd be good. And then it kind of took off. You know what I mean? So
our parallels are very similar then.
Dude, I'm telling you, I become close friends with a ton of the people that I interview because exactly like your story arc that you had to go through to build a career around this. Most people can't really relate to it. Like they can relate to pieces of it, but they just don't see it the same, I guess, versus like somebody like me, anybody else who built a career out of something that they were passionate about and it wasn't money driven. We were facing so many people over the years telling us that's not a real job. You can't really do that. We're sitting up at like thinking, putting notes on our phones of like, maybe this would work. Okay, I'm going to try that. That didn't work. You're getting unfazed after 20 times of things not working and figuring it out. It's like, so anyways, lots of parallels definitely happen. So let me ask you this. I've been approached about doing stuff outside of my own show. Like I said, I've interviewed other people for various things. Again, disc golf has gotten way bigger, but that still has a relatively low ceiling as far as like you're not getting paid what Joe Buck gets paid, right? Have you ever considered doing any kind of commentary or announcing on anything other than disc golf?
I think I've always said if disc golf somehow got wiped off the face of the earth tomorrow, which would be a tragic day, but if it did, I think I would find myself promoting and doing something similar in some other probably niche sport. Okay. I'm not saying it would have been bags years ago or what it would have been probably something that wasn't necessarily mainstream, but I found some excitement in. Yeah. And that's just my guess. And so I guess the answer to your question is, I would entertain it. I want obviously an understanding of it. Nobody wants to look or feel like a fool when they, go out and do something. So I'd hopefully have a grasp of it to go out and be part of it. But if somebody'd be willing to have me, and maybe it'd be semi-comedic relief or just a different angle or perspective. I feel like somebody was like, hey, we're running this contest. What do I know you're from disc golf, but we're doing something that's kind of adjacent to that. What do you think about coming in and guesting, being a co-host guest or something? I would be up to that. I don't know how I do, but I certainly, I'm not bashful. I would try it.
Dude, that's how a lot of people start though. Like Joe Buck, I don't think he was ever a professional player. I mean, a lot of the NFL hosts were,
Sure,
but not
sure.
all of them. But a lot of people just kind of come up through that. And I guess because I'm not working with them, I won't shout out which one it is. But like, I love anytime I can have a new opportunity, even if I'm like, this might just be a one-off, you know, like one thing, I'll throw it out there. I want to do voice acting on a cartoon. Really, really bad. Even if it's just one side character in one random episode of this one random thing.
I love
that's
it.
something that's like, I feel like I could do that, and that would
Okay.
be a really cool experience to try to do. Okay, we're going to run out of time. I know I still have a lot of other things to talk about. What are, if you had to just pick 3 things to tell people to stop doing in disc golf? Because you see it. I know I heard you talk about another podcast about kicking dirt and various things. I'm sure there's other ones.
Sure.
What are 3 practices that people should stop doing?
First of all, let's start with, do not get too bent out of shape on the flight numbers. Every disc that's made today has basically like a little quadrant of numbers on it, and it tells you, how fast it is. It tells you kind of which way it will go, left or right, and it tells you those are absolutely a great guide. But they're barely even scientific at best. They are largely marketing. So although use those as a guide, do not live and die by those. Those are, and within that, same thing can be said of our disc weights. Most discs weigh, I'm generically speaking, between 160 grams and 175 grams for the most part. Most of the discs that are made and thrown today. If you have a 173 gram disc and it flies great for you, the same exact thing that's 172 or 174 grams will also probably fly the exact same for you. So the point is, don't get too worked up on some of these things, some of these weights and some of these minor things. People lose their mind. Well, no, that's only 169 and I only throw 170 gram. It probably wasn't even on a calibrated scale. So shut up, right?
Yeah.
You're putting too much effort into that. So weights and flight numbers, don't get too worked up over. Generally speaking, be good, kind stewards of the environment and nature when you're out there. You're probably playing on a free disc golf course. Chances are 98% of the 10,000 courses are free, right?
Yeah.
Don't litter. I mean, this is basic stuff,
Right.
but sometimes people don't put value on something if they're not paying for it. So they're like, oh, I'm out at a park. I brought in a 12 pack of beer or whatever, and they just are careless with it. So littering, just be good stewards of the property that the park. You don't go to a park for any reason and litter or be an a-hole or be destructive.
Or throw F-bombs when there's kids with their parents right next to you.
Yeah, just be respectful. Share a park property, whether it's public or private. Share the park property with other patrons and have a good time. But just realize, don't try and hurt the wildlife that's out there. Just do dumb, destructive things. You see way too many people do that, and you want to associate with kids, but it can be adults as well.
Yeah.
So be good stewards. Don't litter and do all that stuff. Don't worry about flight numbers too much. And something else that people shouldn't do. Don't play in groups that are too large. And that's that's an etiquette thing. Just like you go out to the golf course with your buddies, and they won't let you go out in a 6-some or an 8-some or a 10-some and play out there, because you're going to obviously stop, slow up play, and then everyone else that gets near you is going to have to awkwardly ask if they can play through. Don't do that in disc golf either, if you can avoid it. Sometimes you're the only people on the property and it's not a big deal, but just be kind and considerate to everyone else that's out there. And try not to go out and play in an F-sum, as we call it, the PG version, calling it an F-sum. Stick to 3, 4, 5 people at most, and try not to hold people up. And if 1 or 2 people come up and they're trying to zip through the course, because you're trying to get disc golf in under an hour, which is very practical to do, kindly let them play through. Step aside and let them play through.
Yeah.
So.
Don't be that guy. Just be nice when you see somebody else playing. You clearly weren't in a rush. So don't be in a rush and let them pass.
And all of those maybe should be superseded by, really one of the biggest ones is, we have only roughly 7% of our demographic is women that play. Women are chastised, made fun of, don't feel safe, they're harassed. Whenever you have women on the disc golf course, don't be an a-hole to them.
Yeah.
Like, just don't, for any reason. Like, we're a male-dominated sport, and it's been that way since the 70s and 80s. It's probably going to largely continue to be male-dominated, and like I said, roughly 7 to 9% of our demographic are women that play, at least in a competitive format at all. We're not going to get any more women or diversify by you being an a-hole or a jerk to the women that do come out and play.
Yeah.
So just, again, be a good human.
Yeah.
I hate to say that. That sounds so obvious, but if there's 2 women that come out, they probably don't need your help.
Yeah.
They don't need you harassing them. Just let them. They're probably not out there to meet men.
Yeah.
Just let them enjoy the sport as it is. And I hate to get like so fired up about this, but just so many often women just are like, yeah, just feel harassed.
Same way in skateboarding, dude. It's been that way for the longest time.
I can see that. Where it's like, there's a woman. Oh my God, what can we do to either attract her or impress her or just chase her off?
Right.
And it's like, just be nice.
Well, in skateboarding, what helped was the Olympics.
Sure.
Dude, women's skateboarding has like skyrocketed ever since there was like more organized things. And it's because young girls see other like girls on TV and they're like, oh, so it's not weird if I do that. I can actually get into that. And so again, it comes down to media. When people see it as possible because they see other people doing it, more people get into it. And then if all of a sudden with skateboarding, a lot of skate parks, like indoor parks, will have women's night or girls night or whatever, where it's just girl skate free, just as a like, here, come meet some peers so that way you are more comfortable. I think there's a lot of those things need to happen. Okay, so you're on a mic all the time. You're in front of a camera all the time. Most people are very uncomfortable getting in front of a camera. What are 3 things you've learned that help you be comfortable in front of a camera?
One that you're supposed to do is slow down. I still don't feel like I do that. I'm so excited usually to talk about disc golf, whether I'm getting asked a question or I'm just projecting something that's going on. You should try to slow down. That would be one of my tips.
And enunciate.
Exactly. And enunciate and try and get through all of that as much as you can. Another one, as I just did it and said, listen to yourself once in a while. How many ahs and ums do you really have? When you're listening back to yourself and you're talking about something, just trying to eliminate those pauses. And everybody is guilty of them. But once you hear yourself do it, I think it helps you learn to eliminate them. Or at least you're catching yourself. And it might be a long process.
Yeah.
But learn to eliminate those nothing filler words, largely ahs and ums.
Try editing your own content and you'll see.
Yeah, exactly. How often you're saying that.
Yeah.
One of the words that I personally learned to get rid of, and everybody has crutch words and crutch phrases, so to speak. I think one of the words that I ultimately learned to get rid of was saying the word absolutely. And I think I nailed it down to, it's got a lot of syllables and you're agreeing with someone, so it's easy to spit out. And it's an affirmation, right?
Yeah.
So somebody goes on with something, and 9 times out of 10 you don't probably even need to reply.
Yeah.
But you're like, oh yeah, absolutely. And again, it has all those syllables. You sound smart. Find words or things of that nature that you could probably eliminate that you don't need. And then last, but I would say, get comfortable with trying to speak right to the camera lens, which for a lot of people feels weird depending on what your setup is, or if you have a viewfinder that's looking back at you, or how you're doing it. I don't have any tips to it exactly to how to do it, but just learn to be comfortable speaking to this odd little ball that is a camera lens, because I think that's when you're going to get your most impactful statements to come across, is when you're speaking directly to the camera lens, assuming that's the style that you're looking for, obviously.
Well, and it's just a matter of doing it. The thing that I try to impress upon people is anything that you create, and content can be part of it. It could be a podcast or whatever. You don't have to show it to anybody. People are embarrassed. That's why they don't want to do it. They don't want to look silly. That's why creating content in public is awkward, because you don't want to look silly. But if you're doing it at your house, it's like not that big of a deal. You don't have to show it to anybody. You know, when I started painting, I didn't think anyone would look at my paintings, and I was not planning on showing them to anybody. So I didn't feel bad that they sucked. You know what I mean? Until I felt more comfortable. And that's the same thing with being on camera or whatever, is the more times you do it, the more comfortable you are with kind of anything. We are coming towards the end, but I heard you in another interview talking about Thailand, and I don't know how I don't want to skip over the fact that that is a country that I don't think disc golf is massive in yet, but you're doing your part in growing it. So what is your connection to Thailand?
I was blessed that 6-7 years ago, a friend reached out to me and said, "Hey, I've been in Thailand for a couple of years. Disc golf is growing a little bit here. Would you be interested in us contracting you to come film the tournament that takes place?" And it was in January or February, and I said,
Perfect time to go.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? So I said, yeah, I'd absolutely be interested. I got to the island of Samui, known as Koh Samui, and I immediately just fell in love with the concept of being there. You know, this is a little bit of a touristy island, I've now learned, but just being there is just the way Thai people overall, I think, look at life. I mean, so many people live in what we consider absolute poverty and nothing but smiles on their faces.
Yeah.
You know, just, it's just incredible. And since then, you know, that's one specific tournament and one specific course. Now a couple of those really big movers and shakers over there are continuing to sprawl out. And so now we're seeing big things happening in Chiang Mai, which is a community I've now gone to 4 or 5 times. I've learned all about the Chiang Mai area, and then there's a couple of others that continue just to grow. So when I went there 6 or 7 years ago for my first time, there was 1 or 2, maybe 3 courses in Thailand, and now there's upwards of 10 or 11 or 12, and they're in schools, and we're bringing discs over to donate to kids in schools, and we're putting in courses that kids are able to play for free. And so it's just a growing community. And even though I'm on the other side of the world and I'm only probably still going there for 2 weeks out of every year, I love seeing that it was where it started, and I wasn't even there from the beginning, but I love watching it grow and expand, and I think that's cool in a lot of countries. I was in Uruguay. We put in the first ever disc golf course there last year as part of the Paul Macbeth Foundation. So to know that I was there to put in the first ever tee signs and tee pads in an entire country, and to think 10 or 15 years from now, a world champ could come from there, or we could be going there for a large scale tournament. You know, to see some of that grassroots effort is just really exciting for me.
Yeah, and it could be the disc golf guy too.
Yeah,
maybe not even the next Masters champ or world champion, but it could be the next person that does have a huge impact. And I think of this in skateboarding, like there are pros that are like incredibly impactful. You know, like Tony Hawk obviously is like the biggest impact on skateboarding of any skateboarder ever. But a lot of times it's the skate shop owners that have the biggest impact, like overall, because of what they do within their community.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So your role doesn't have to be a pro or whatever. And again, you built a career that didn't exist in disc golf. You were able to build something for yourself by being creative and looking at different options of like, well, what can I do to make this feasible? And that does apply to almost anything. I have a friend that just dives around in Wisconsin, like scuba dives and picks up garbage, and that's how he makes a living. And he didn't intend to make a living that way.
He retrieves discs too, doesn't he?
He does.
He did
all
it
the time.
in Green Bay.
Yes.
I saw one of his videos.
Yeah,
so there
dude,
you go.
at the diver. Yeah. So you can make a career out of pretty much anything. I want to get one last story out of you. You have so many, and maybe we'll do a 3-hour episode later on or something. When you do something that you're passionate about for a living, you get to have really unique experiences that are rarely financially driven. They could be traveling to this place. It could be meeting this kid and then 5 years later seeing him do whatever. What can you share a story of an experience like that for you? One that's not financially driven, but was really meaningful.
It was a career defining moment for me. So that's what I would say. And it wasn't just about the finances at all. It was the first time I went to Norway. And that was again in 2012 or 13. An event had reached out, saw what I was doing with video, and said, hey, we'll cover your expenses to get here and we'll pay you something, but it wasn't certainly a lot.
Yeah, but you got to go to Norway.
I got to go to Norway. Yeah. And that's what I've said for countless countries since then. Like, low key, you're going to get me. If I'm coming to a country for the first time, like I was just invited to Denmark, you're probably going to get me cheaper than if it was my 10th time going to Denmark, right? So I went to Norway. It happened to be with a couple of world champions who I'm good friends with. They were there to play. And they were bringing me, you know, the event was bringing me there from a media perspective. And I remember we climbed I'm not going to call it a mountain, but we took a legitimate hike up to this spot in Ålesund, Norway. And I just remember walking down, and I was with one of my good friends now, who's a world champ, 3-time world champ, and he's like, dude, you're here like because of what you've been doing with media for the last couple years. And it was just such a surreal moment of like, again, it wasn't the money. It was like, holy cow, I've kind of made it, at least for me.
Yeah.
I've made it in the sense that I'm in frickin' Norway, one of the most expensive, beautiful countries in the world. And I was brought here solely based on my passion and on my love for what I was doing. And just the fact that I was having that experience as only like the third time I'd ever left even the U.S. I'd played in Japan for 2 other times, and this was the first time I'd ever been brought anywhere outside the U.S. exclusively for disc golf media. And that was like that was kind of game changing. That was life changing.
Yeah. I mean, the fulfillment that you feel from that type of thing, from creating something from nothing and it getting to the point where people value it so much that they give you a life experience is like, oh my God, dude. And I try to think of it too, of like, maybe we don't make as much money as regular careers, but think about how much money somebody in a regular job would have spent to have that experience. They would have not only paid for the plane, right, but they would have had to take PTO from work, and they would have had to get their wife to let them go, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like the amount,
or travel with them, which is more expensive.
Yeah, and then with their kids, it's like the amount that somebody with a regular career would have had to put in to be able to have that experience would have been insane. And you got paid to do it, even if it was little. You got paid to do it.
Yeah, I have now. I forget the number. I'm going to say I've roughly been in 12 countries.
I've been to 12.
I was in 9 last year alone, 9 different countries, all for disc golf, of which I would have probably went to 0 if I wasn't in disc golf. So that's so much payment in itself, that experience, those places, all of that. And I'm going to quickly make a plug. I read Crush It by Gary Vaynerchuk. That did change my life. That's what started, that got me to start my vlog that night.
Sure.
Is when I turned on a camera and made my first ever vlog. I read a 99-page book that basically said you can turn anything in the world into anything you're passionate about. You can turn into a career.
Yeah.
And that's exactly, I was doing it, but that was what pushed me over the edge.
Dude, there's a reason Gary Vee is one of the biggest people in anything in the world now, partially due to that, but in general, all of his TED Talks and everything else. Let me give you a couple gifts, and I want you to shout out where people can go follow you, and in general also like where people can go support, whether it's on Patreon or whether it's like leaving comments on this thing, or maybe it's signing up for a newsletter or whatever. So a couple gifts. First, I have these headphones from Skull Candy.
Yes.
So these are the new Dime Evos. Those are $59.95 normally, and they're fancy and gold. They're not quite these ones, but they are really, really dope. So those are yours.
They might get used this weekend while I'm out broadcasting. Oh. I need a set of headphones literally when I'm in the field reporting. So I'll charge them up and I'll try them this weekend.
Hell yeah. Perfect. And then second, you get to have one of the coffee cups. So I got that one or that one, and I actually have another one off mic that I could show you design. So you get to pick one of those ones.
Oh, I like. Time to put the work in. I mean, how can I not?
Exactly.
How can I not go with that messaging and branding?
It's so funny because people, they all have different, like, you know, what the things they like are very different. And I can tell from people's personalities. I'm like always guessing in my mind. I wonder which one they're going to pick. And I usually guess right. Okay. So give a shout out. I know it's just the Disc Golf Guy everywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know you have Smashbox.
Yep.
Shout out where everyone can find you and all the things, and then how they can support you.
Yeah. As I was just alluding to, when I realized that, you know, social media was going to be something I needed to look into, I try to register the Disc Golf Guy everywhere I can. So I own thediscgolfguy.com. On Instagram, it's the Disc Golf Guy. On all of my socials, it's the Disc Golf Guy. So no matter where you go, if you go to patreon.com/the Disc Golf Guy, you can find me there. My YouTube channel, the Disc Golf Guy. So everywhere you look, Twitter, you name it, X, whatever, all of them are the Disc Golf Guy. So if you want to find me, reach out to me. We talked a little bit about it earlier about brand deals and whatnot. I love the idea of working with anyone outside of disc golf, just because you're gonna own a space and not compete with anyone else at that point. So if someone's interested in advertising, it's something that I have to get more serious about, and would love to, you know, team up with people, like-minded people that love the idea of supporting, you know, what's going on in this really cool community. Part podcast every Tuesday night, Smashbox TV. You can find us there. It's a long form podcast, and then we have releases all on YouTube, Spotify, and all the other normal places you'd find a podcast. So all of that's available. But yeah, just search The Disc Golf Guy. Ask Alexa, ask Google, whatever. You'll probably come to my information and whatnot. So you're certainly welcome to reach out to me at any point and follow me on any of the socials, all with The Disc Golf Guy. And if you're feeling squirrely and you want to, support me, and you can go to Venmo and go to The Disc Golf Guy.
Perfect. Yeah. Venmo, Passion Pod. You can find out passionpod.org if you want to donate to the show. There is a Patreon where episodes do go early. Sometimes I have guests who, if they are musically inclined, to give me 10 songs. I put up little 10-song playlists sometimes.
Nice.
Which is kind of cool. There's also merchandise like the coffee cups that you can buy at passionpod.org as well. And then I never say it, but I guess like and subscribe, bro. I never say that. But people need to do that. For YouTube, really, that's the space that I'm trying to move in more long term. Okay. And so, yeah, if you enjoyed the show, subscribe to the show. But yeah, dude, thank you so much. This was absolutely incredible. I'll need to join you for one of these 3-hour. I'll hop in the chat. Yeah, and I'll keep it as appropriate as possible, and just take it over. Did you watch our episode though? You should probably go check out this podcast. Though.
Absolutely. Yeah, come find us over there. I appreciate it. Yeah, my tagline has become, instead of like, share, and subscribe, I just say, do all the YouTube things. The kids would know what that means. But thank you so much for having me. Thank you for driving this far. Dude, just to sit down and have the chat, and I certainly really appreciate it, and hopefully if anybody wanted to learn more about disc golf or the crazy world that we're in, hopefully I provided a little more insight.
Yeah, now they are introduced.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.